Well, welcome to another episode of our Ag+Bio+Science podcast presented by AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick, the host of Inside Indiana Business, also the host of this weekly podcast where we have in-depth conversations with the leaders, the innovators, and entrepreneurs in Indiana's Ag+Bio+Science sector, the sector where food, agriculture, science, and technology converge. This week, excited to sit down with Schacht, the Executive Vice President of Innovation, Regulatory, and Business Development at Elanco. Aaron, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Gerry.
And I say welcome back to the podcast. You really kicked off this podcast back in 2018. You've continued with your leadership role, certainly at Elanco, but also at AgriNovus to the extent that you were recently named interim CEO of the organization.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. First, great to be back. I was glad to be invited back. Didn't know after my first event whether that would happen, but glad to be here with you again.
Were great.
Obviously, things at Elanco continue to be exciting, and obviously with AgriNovus, with Beth's departure, it's an important time for us. First of all, Beth has laid such a tremendous platform, and if you can talk about AgriNovus, you think about Beth Bechtel. We now get the opportunity, right, to fill her shoes. Beth's team, as well as myself as the acting CEO, to really just carry forward the momentum that she's built.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, Aaron, if you would, because I've said on many occasions I was always impressed by the momentum behind AgriNovus seemingly from day one. There was such enthusiasm and support at the initial announcement, and that is carried on. As you take over this acting role or in the process of getting a permanent successor, how would you assess the state of AgriNovus?
Yeah, I think the health of AgriNovus is very strong. It's what happens when you have a great concept meeting great leadership. And really the challenge for us is the concept is unchanged. In fact, it becomes even more exciting, this convergence of food, agriculture, science, and technology being the foundation of what really Indiana can contribute on a global scale, followed by or led by someone with great energy and passion. Now we get to step up the board, the executive board, the AgriNovus team, and really sort of fill in the blanks relative to what Beth leaves behind, and hopefully conduct a successful search to find a replacement.
You're a very busy guy. Why is it important for you to take on this additional role to help guide the organization at this time of transition?
Sure. As the executive chair, I mean, the most important thing that I can do with my colleagues who sit on the executive board is make sure maintain consistency and continuity. But more importantly, we need to maintain momentum. We've got great momentum, great recognition for the state because of this initiative. I think we're differentiating ourselves, and we don't want to lose that. Mm-hmm. So with all the investment we've made so far, really realizing the returns on those investments are where we are now, and to step away and let things sort of be less well maintained would not be the right thing right now.
In addition to leading the AgriNovus team, you also chair the search effort for that new CEO with Medallion Partners. We've had CEO Tom Bratton actually on this podcast. What can you tell us about the process and the qualities, what you're looking for in that next leader?
Yeah. So the process is well underway. We're glad to have the Medallion team supporting our efforts. We formed a search committee that's made up of both executive committee members as well as other board members. That team has been organized, worked closely with the Medallion team, really set out the specifications for the next leader. And those really come down to a leader who can come in and really accelerate the growth of the engine that's been built here. The great platform is built, lots of energy and great direction, lots of things we know work well that we need to maintain, but now opportunities to grow beyond that. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for a leader who can really build on what Beth has built and take this enterprise to the next level.
Do you have a timetable to name a successor?
Ideally, we'd like to conclude a search in the first half of this year. That'll be a function of how good the candidate pool is and how quickly we can move through the process of selecting and negotiating. But that's our goal, is to try to get somebody in place by the end of the first half.
Yeah. Knowing the AgriNovus team, as I do, I would expect that it's going to be, business as normal for the organization. But in this year of transition, are there some goals and targets that you have set for AgriNovus?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it is business as usual, except in the sense that I think all of the members of the AgriNovus team are looking forward to the opportunity to step up and doing more, not only because they can as individuals, but because the package of activity that we have underway requires it. We've successfully renewed the Lilly Endowment Grant, so we've got more funding fuel. We've got a constant base of company investors in AgriNovus, so the finances are in place to really drive key projects forward, and we're looking forward forward to continue things like preparation for another summit this year, advancing a new taxonomy study, which really ends up being an update to the original study that launched AgriNovus, taking a measure of how is the state doing in these categories of business and how are we positioned on a national and global scale to continue to lead in economic development initiatives. That's important going forward. There's some work going on to enable entrepreneurs in the state to catalyze their efforts forward. There's work going on to identify talent pools and mobilize those and bring those forward. So all of these initiatives are very well established, very well led by the current individuals, and it's really just now let's run our plays.
You mentioned funding, which obviously is critically important to any organization. As you look at those corporate partners, talk about the buy-in that is there. There are tremendous assets on the corporate side around the state of Indiana. And it seems to me that there's been real buy-in and understanding of the importance of AgriNovus from really day one.
Yeah, there's no question. That's been the group that I feel surrounded by along the way to this point. But I think an interesting point to make is I reached out to the board members when we knew of Beth's transition and asked all of our board members to consider committing not only for 2020 but 2021 as well, such that we could take the pressure off of securing those commitments of the new CEO when that person arrives. Mm-hmm. And we've uniformly had great commitment across the board to do that. So that's an evidence of they believe in AgriNovus beyond a more than a 1 year at a time sort of framework.
Yeah. As you look at the potential going forward, once you get that new leader in place, but the future for AgriNovus, how would you assess it? You know, it seemed to me with the momentum that has been established, the partners who seem to be engaged, that the upside is fairly substantial.
It is. I think we've had, successes of the right kinds. One, we've drawn attention to Indiana as a sector that for this sector that is very important and could become, globally relevant. Mm-hmm. I think we've attracted companies from outside the U.S. to Indiana to land either expansions of their business or the central headquarters of their business. I think we've catalyzed the energy around a startup environment, and we've drawn attention to the great talent pools that exist here across the different sectors that converge to make up Ag+Bio+Science. We've got anchor tenants in the form of an Elanco and a Corteva who are really launching into the next phase and season of their existence. And so I think all of these things are the consummate ingredients to continue this. Where do we go next is really just to continue to converge, catalyze, attract, and tell that story in louder and more substantial ways. And I think we have a pretty good advocate now sitting in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to also take some of that mindset and extend it beyond even the United States.
Well, before we go, Aaron, do want to talk about your role at Elanco, certainly one of the shining stars, corporate stars in the state of Indiana. You've been very busy on that side of the ledger as well. Talk about what's going on at Elanco. It's been a successful year since going public in June. Give us a thumbnail sketch of what's happening.
Yeah, it's really been quite an adventure with the the initial public offering in late 2018, setting us up to stand separate from Lilly, with Lilly completing the exchange of Elanco shares and really setting us free as an independent operating business in early 2019. And then, of course, a couple of acquisitions on the smaller side, followed by a big announcement around the Bayer Animal Health acquisition. We have successfully navigated 6 quarters of meeting expectations for our results on both the top line and the bottom line, so feel quite good about the health and strength of the business. And with the Bayer acquisition, should that come to conclusion with approval by the regulatory authorities of the U.S. and Europe, which is really what we're waiting for to close the deal, we move from a position of strength in the animal health industry to a position of leadership, and that's really been our ambition. It sets us up to grow, to expand our reach globally, to address more customer needs across the bigger set of platforms than we've been able to do. It's a very exciting time to be at Elanco.
Aaron Schacht is the Executive Vice President of Innovation, Regulatory, and Business Development at Elanco. Aaron, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your leadership on so many levels. It's very important. Thank you.
And my pleasure. It's an exciting time to be involved in these things.
All right, and thank you for joining us on this latest edition of the Ag+Bio+Science podcast. It's a weekly production partnership between AgriNovus Indiana and Inside Indiana Business. And a reminder that registration is still open for the AgriNovus Indiana, the 4th annual Ag+Bio+Science Startup Showcase. It's April 30 at the Biltwell in Indianapolis. Attending is free. All you have to do is register at bit.ly/AgBioShowcase20. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gerry Dick. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is a product of Inside Indiana Business. Hosted by Gerry Dick. Produced by Bridget O'Reilly, Libby Fritz, and Joe Ullery. More people get Indiana business news from Inside Indiana Business than any other source.